The great agents really put themselves in the shoes of their client, and then they work backwards.
They did it in Denmark. They have surveys up front. It's a legal requirement.
Why is that such a common piece of feedback that I hear?
It's because we live in a world where people sue McDonald's if they get fat. Because there's such an issue with claims and surveys being done, there's a real race to the bottom on fees.
Yeah, because you could have a great surveyor, you could have a great agent, you can have a great mortgage broker.
Yeah.
But the conveyancer's a piece of crap. You're in a lot of trouble, generally speaking.
You can't buy an old house and expect to not have to spend money on it.
I think what we're generally saying is you can actually increase the speed of the transaction if you... Welcome to the next episode of Estate Agent Showdown with my fabulous guests, Amy Williams.
Hi.
A surveyor. See, it's caught you out. And Natasha Candeias.
Candeias, yes.
Candeias. I nearly got it right. Damn it, I did practice. And Natasha, you've got a sales progression business,
yeah.
But you're also an ex-estate agent.
That's right, yeah.
And so is Amy.
Yep.
So we've got some estate agency knowledge mixed in with your new roles within the industry.
Yeah.
So let's start with the transaction timeframes. We're going to dive right into there. What do you think the average transaction time frame is right now in September 2025? What is it at the minute?
I think... Do you want to go?
Go on, you go.
I mean, you're going to have better knowledge in this because I come in.
I just thought of it earlier. I was like, I want to know what it is. One of you is bound to know.
I know during COVID it got up to about 20 weeks, didn't it? But I think now it's got to be what I say to people, about 15 weeks.
I think probably more than that. I know in days. I would say about 150 days.
How many is that in weeks?
5 months.
Oh, good. I'm like, glad one. It's 5 months. It's 5 months.
Yeah.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
But why?
Well, I mean, there's a whole host of reasons, but it's very surprising how little the industry still just uses sales negotiators to do sales progression, I think. And I still hear people to this day say, "I'll just leave it to the solicitors," which is obviously a problem because you can't just leave sales to go through. So, as a company, we own almost half what the national average is, because we're chasing and we're getting things done. So, I think if a sale is left to go through, I think you've got about a 50-50 chance whether it goes through or not.
Is that basically because solicitors just aren't under any particular pressure to get things over the line? I mean, from your experience?
Yeah, I think it's because they're not under pressure to get it over the line, but I also think solicitors are overwhelmed with too many cases, and I think there's a real lack of solicitors going into the conveyancing side. So, yeah, I think that there's a mixture.
One of the reasons why I brought Amy on as well is because I've been asking questions around whether estate agents can actually control the speed of the sale overall by maybe looking at some kind of interventions. One being, should a seller have a survey?
See, I think there's a
pre-sale?
massive lack of knowledge of how the transaction process works.
Okay.
So, I mean, most people haven't moved for years, and I think we take
so from
that
a client's perspective.
Yeah, and I think we really take that for granted and just think that, oh, they know what they're doing. They know what to do. And I find a lot of people don't realise the timeframes in which they're meant to do things. So, I mean, I've had a text from actually one of your colleagues today. Can you fit in a survey next week? The people want to exchange by the 19th.
Fabulous.
So, and I get this a lot.
That's not clear.
I love that.
But it's a massive last minute thing. And I think there needs to be more set out about this is what you're meant to do. I think there's a lot of incompetence in agency, the legal side of things, even surveying. Yeah. And I mean, our transaction when we moved took 7 months because our buyer had the worst solicitor I've dealt with in 15 years. Yeah. They were awful.
I want you to whisper in my ear who it was again.
Fortunately, they are no longer open.
There's a surprise. But why were they awful?
I mean, there was just a whole host of errors. They didn't realise their flat was shared ownership.
On the sale,
they hadn't asked for the legal packs. They then didn't realise they were staircasing. There were so many issues that went wrong, and it was a real lack of communication, I think, amongst amongst them, it may not be. They must have had too many cases, like you say as well. Like they're
that
qualified.
that was probably in what, peak market, 3.5.
That was 21, yeah. So
and there was like a massive like backlog, but it feels, even though the transaction volumes at the minute aren't to that level, like the number of sales being made, but the time frame's still not that much different.
Yeah, it's really strange to me, because I feel like COVID was a real line in the sand with property transactions and the time frame it takes for them to go through, because I feel like since COVID everything's just got slower and nothing's really got back on track. Do you know what I mean? And as an industry, I think we could be doing a lot more to get the sales back on track. You know, I think we could be taking it a lot more seriously, but I think...
Why do you think people don't, though? Why do you think it's generally not taken that seriously?
I think estate agents get excited.
When
I think
sold
estate
the house.
agents,
Celebrate the sale.
They go to the val, excited that they've got the listing. You know, they've agreed the offer. It's all excitement. But where in that process are we educating sellers? You know, like they're only moving once every 15 years. Well, they need to be educated. You know, so the sellers don't get the education. The buyers also don't get the education. People don't trust estate agents. So
but that's a weird paradigm, because like if you were to sit in front of a client like you and Dave, for argument's sake, and say, look, I'm going to talk you through the process, I think that would win trust, as opposed to have the opposite.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Impact.
I actually made a joke yesterday about when I was talking to Dave's parents about moving, and I was saying, this is what you need to do, and if the price is too much, I said I should open my own consultancy kind of business, consulting people who want to move. And there's nothing like that, even in agency. And I joked, and Dave went, actually, that would work really, you'd probably do really well. Because people don't understand. And I have people come to me as the surveyor saying, oh, I'm getting divorced, I don't understand the process, my ex-husband used to do it all, can you explain it all to me? And I think one of the reasons why I do a lot of work for a lot of the local agencies, because I'm helpful. That's all I am. Like, I don't think it's a standout quality. I just help people and guide them.
No, I definitely describe you as that. I mean, you've just heard live on air that you've just had another referral.
Yeah, sorry, I'm off next week.
Actually, we'll wait to see if you've downvalued it or something like that first. But so just coming back to that. So the great agents really put themselves in the shoes of their client. Yeah. And then they work backwards and kind of make sure that they have answers to questions. But let's go into that subject of surveys first. Is it a good idea to get a seller to invest in, right, I'm going to sell my house. I don't want to come up, because a lot of problems come from people getting worried about what the survey report says. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
And actually, a lot of the time, they shouldn't really be too worried. Obviously, there are examples where they should.
Yeah.
Maybe we can touch on some of that as well. But generally speaking, should we get sellers to get surveys done on their house before they go to market?
I think there's a lot of debate about this on kind of the surveying Facebook forums and all sorts as to
surveyors
whether it's
on
a good idea.
Facebook?
Yeah, surveyors have Facebook. We're not, not all of them are old.
I'd imagine them doing the opposite of that. But anyway.
There's a big debate. There's a lot of kind of, we have to have a lot of insurance, a lot of liability. We send out terms and conditions to the buyer before the survey's done. And you think if you're the vendor getting that survey, there's a lot of people relying on that. You've got to put a date on it. You've got to say, well, this is only going to be valid for a certain amount of time.
How long is it that it's valid for?
So the new RICS survey standards are coming out soon. They're changing it all about, and the vendor surveys are touched on in that a little bit. And they say the date, the surveyor has to decide the date. But you think if you said, okay, well, this is valid for 6 months and you do it in August, by October, it might have chucked it down. There's going to be some damp there that wasn't there before.
Yeah.
And whilst it's a good idea in principle, I think it would need to be there would need to be some legislation around it, because you'd also get the vendors who will go, I'll get one done for me, then I'll cover stuff up and put a door in front of that big crack like I've seen before, or put a load of pictures in front of that damp patch down there. So I think if it's going to be done...
Are you suggesting the public are slightly sneaky around
not.
covering up these things, Amy Williams?
If I was selling my house, I'd definitely cover it up.
Yeah, that's a lovely rug.
But I think it would have to be massively kind of legislated as to how it would work if repairs are going to be done. And I think that's why there's too much around how it's done as to why people don't want to do it. And also, I did quote somebody recently for one, and it was a big old listed kind of Victorian farmhouse, and he went, "Oh, I don't want to pay the money. I might not sell the house." And so to put your house on the market is free, really, isn't it? Yes, you've got to get the EPC.
That's part of the problem, though.
Yeah, well, remember the days we had hip packs? I think that was
they
slightly
were successful,
before me.
weren't they?
Yes.
Well, I mean, the idea probably was, a good idea maybe in theory, where people are buying almost all of the information at point of purchase.
Yeah, which I think is what you do in Scotland.
They did it in Denmark. They have surveys up front. It's a legal requirement to have a survey up front and to have an electrical report. So not an EICR. It doesn't have to be signed off, because obviously there's lots of properties that are sold that need refurbishing, but they have to have a survey and an electrical report in Denmark. I was doing my research before I came here. But I thought it was a really good idea. But actually, from listening to what you're saying, it sounds like the surveying industry isn't quite set up for vendors getting surveys.
And you're probably right, because there are vendor surveys out there, but I think there are a lot of surveyors who would go, "Oh, actually, no, I don't want to do that." And the way surveys are written, I mean, you've probably read hundreds of level 2 and level 3 reports over your time. They're written for a buyer.
Yes.
So then you've kind of got to change all of that. You've got to have dedicated vendor surveys set up.
Yeah.
And you've got to write them in a way that, indicates everything that there is that the buyers can then rely on as well. So it's kind of a bit of an untapped market. It's definitely a good idea, but I think the rules would have to change quite a lot for everyone to do it.
Yeah.
But it would save so much time, wouldn't it?
It's interesting to hear you say that, because I'm like 100% for vendor surveys, and never really thought of the legislation that would have to be in place. I didn't even think of vendors getting surveys and then trying to cover things up. That didn't even enter my mind.
Sneaky.
Yeah.
From my perspective, I just see so many sales get to a point where they've had a survey, and like in estate agency and sales progression, there's good and bad surveyors. So there's some surveyors that I think are overly negative in survey reports that then cause transactions to fall through. So my thought process is, well, if a buyer's got a report up front and they can see exactly the condition of the property, they make their offer based on... Yeah. And it's good for the buyer and the seller because there's complete transparency of the condition of the property. The only thing that went through my head is if something like that was brought out is what I think is amazing that surveyors do is talk to the... I know that not all of them do, but talk to the client and talk them through the survey report, because I think survey reports can read very scary, especially to first-time buyers.
Yes.
So why is that? Just on that point. Why is that such a common piece of feedback that I hear?
So it's because we live in a world where people sue McDonald's if they get fat.
Yeah.
You have to cover yourself.
That's beautiful. Make sure you put
But you have to, like, if so.
And it's true.
I was talking to somebody recently who said, "Oh, I remember surveys used to be 6 pieces of A4, and it just said there's a hole in the roof."
Yeah.
But I've got to say, well, there's a hole in the roof, but actually I couldn't see some bits of the roof because there was a tree in the way, and there might be damage, and there might be this, and
so if we told all our buyers and said, look, when you get the report back, it might sound a lot scarier than it really is, and that's because McDonald's gets sued because it makes people fat, right?
Yeah, yes, you've got to
be careful on your audience there a little bit, but there is a lot of truth behind that.
Oh yeah, definitely. And there's so much that you can't see, even on a building survey. I could spend all day there, and the owner's stuff is still going to be in the way. And going back to kind of people masking things.
I bet you come across some things.
I have, and that's the thing. I remember walking into an outbuilding once and thought, this is great. And I thought, why is there a door in the middle of this outbuilding at an angle? And I moved it, and there was a massive, great big crack right down the middle where somebody had obviously reversed into this outbuilding from behind.
Oh, no.
And I said to the buyer about it, he went, well, I didn't see that because I didn't think to move the door. And I'm sure maybe they didn't put it there on purpose, but it was a little bit, of a funny place to put a door. Yeah.
It would be interesting to know, like, what percentage of things you find, because I think for somebody watching this perspective, to hear that is quite scary. Do you know what I mean? And I think, like, from my view and the buyers and sellers that I've dealt with over my time, most people are genuine. Most people genuinely don't know that there's an issue.
Yeah.
And most buyers are genuinely not getting a survey to negotiate on price.
Yeah.
So, what percentage would you say, or how common is it to come across?
Very minimal.
Yeah.
But I also think, again, there's a real lack of knowledge from people don't know what damp is. I've got a damp meter. I can test to see if something's got moisture in it, and it's not. I don't poke it and go, it's damp, put the damp phrase in. I kind of go, right, okay, well, why is this here? And a lot of defects, my partner would not know any of the things that are wrong with our house. Because it's not his job. And I think you live in a house for so long, you don't notice these things. You don't go up in the loft every couple of weeks and check all your roof tiles and that sort of thing. And I think there's just a lot of people are very naive, and there's nothing either that you can get out to say, like even a builder, you can't just get a builder out and say, could you look around my house, please, and tell me if there's anything wrong? Well, you don't do that, do you? You put your house on the market, you think, it's lovely, I've painted it all white, and that's it, really.
Yeah, it's true. I was going to say, on the subject of damp, I've read a lot of surveys, and I feel like damp comes up in every single one of them, and it scares most buyers. But how common is it? Does it come up in most surveys? Do you see it in most houses?
Anything old, I say to people, you are going to have damp somewhere. Ours is a 50s house. We've got a little bit at the back of the house because the decking's been put too close and it's been put too high, and then it's clad.
Seen that on a lot of reports.
And it's just that is what it is. My house is solid floors. It's not going to fall down. I've just left it. And my previous house, again, the buyers said, oh, there's some damp in the survey. We're not too bothered, because the surveyor's spoken to us and said, well, it's an old house. You could clear the air vents. And I think there is, again, because there's such an issue with claims and surveys being done, there's a real race to the bottom on fees as well. And I think there is kind of a bit of, oh, well, I've seen a bit of damp, I've got to cover myself, I'll put in that there's damp and they need to get a damp report. Especially in your kind of lower level surveys, because we do just say what we see, get a specialist in. But it's common in an old house, because houses built before mid 1800s don't have damp proof course. So the house was designed to breathe.
You're pretty much going to have damp in most of the older houses, basically speaking.
Unless it is still in the original condition, because the thing is, these houses were designed to breathe, and you're now putting insulation in the loft, you're putting double glazed windows in, you're making it airtight. A bit like when you go in a new build and it's full of mould. They've not used the extractor fans, they've not opened the windows. It's houses, you don't just move in and do nothing.
No.
Which
just for agents' knowledge as well, the difference in the levels of surveys, just because buyers often ask the estate agent, do you think I should get a survey? Right? And I don't know whether you're going to tell me what you really think. I won't hear you anyway. But what is the answer to that, right? What is the answer to that? Because you work for the seller, ultimately, as an estate agent. Yet you've got an obligation, I would say, to the buyer.
Do you know what the statistic is of people who get a survey? Like the amount of buyers that get a survey?
I tried to look this up the other day.
It's very low. It's something like that. I don't know the exact figure.
I tried to look this up the other day, and I think it was between 15 to 18%.
It's very low. It's less than a quarter, definitely. But I went to a house the other day. It was 220 years old. She went, "Oh, we didn't get a survey."
But that doesn't make sense to me, because I feel like in our pipeline, and we've got hundreds of properties in our pipeline. I feel like 90% of residential buyers get mortgages. It certainly feels that way. Would you agree?
Yeah. So you have your mortgage survey done.
So is that including like commercial? Is that including investment?
That's just private residential paid for surveys. Because so many people, I had a message on Instagram earlier from a girl I know. Hello, are you doing the survey on the house I'm buying tomorrow? I said, is it the mortgage valuation? Yeah, the survey. I was like, it's not a survey.
No,
well, let's start there. So that's almost like entry level.
Well, it's not. The whole point of the bank survey is to make sure their money is safe. They're not looking out for you buying it. No. They're making sure if it gets repossessed.
You're paying the lender for their reassurance.
Not even that. It's nothing for you. It's not for you as a buyer.
No, exactly.
It's for Nationwide to make sure that when your house gets repossessed in 10 years' time, they'll get their money back. So they only really look for major
often
issues.
Get that confused with, like you just mentioned with your friend. You're going to be doing the survey tomorrow. it's not actually, it's a mortgage valuation. There's a big difference between those two things.
It's to make sure it's worth what they're paying for it, and that there aren't any huge issues that will prevent the sale of it in the future.
Yeah.
And for that valuation to change, and let's say the surveyor's not going to go and say it's worth more.
Oh no, here we go, down valuations.
So the down valuation subject is upon us. Is it a percentage away from that figure that's been agreed that it has to be like 5% or something in that region for it to be downvalued, or can it be downvalued by even just 2 or 3%?
It depends on the surveyor and it depends on the lender a lot of the time, I think. So a lot of the mainstream lenders will say, well, if your valuation is slightly under, put it back at what it is. We're not going down. I would never downvalue something by £1,000.
Yeah.
So if someone's buying something for say 535 and a half, I'm not going to put it back at 535.
Yeah.
I'm going to agree with what they're buying.
Is there a parameter though? Is it like a feeling? You know, so is there a reason why I say percentage? I'm just trying to think, if I was a surveyor and there was an element of flexibility, how much flexibility do you give yourself?
I think the general rule of thumb is about 5%.
Okay.
But it's got.
It's not written in stone.
No, it's kind of got to stack
it's leaked
up, hasn't
out
it?
somewhere.
Something sold for 600 grand and all your comps are at 500 grand. You're like, I don't want to downvalue it. I'm going to get told off by Matt. I've got to. But again, I'll ask for help in that sort of scenario. And I'll say, look, it's too much money.
Yeah.
And the agent will go, oh yeah, I know.
Not here's some comparable evidence.
Yeah.
I thought we got a good price.
I've been waiting for you.
Yeah.
But the down valuation is based on what for estate agents that are watching this? What is that generally like the rule of thumb? Is it 3 sold comparables, square foot? What is the data for the agents watching this?
But the basic valuation you would do is 3 comparables as a minimum, and then you measure the property, you work out the external floor area, you kind of judge the condition, you find similar comparables. So if I was doing, say, a 3-bed semi in the Oxmoor in Huntingdon, there would be 20 of those available to compare from, and they're all ranging, let's say, between 2 and 220. So if you suddenly got one at 260 because it's got a nice kitchen, you think, actually, no, look, all these are here. Yeah. But then when you've got stuff that's a little bit more kind of just not your normal thing, a bit
more individual,
you've got to hunt. I've spent 3 hours before searching for comparables and trying to find properties that are similar to stack up the valuation. It's not just I'll pick the nearest 3 that are a similar size and off you go.
Yeah, because if it was like that, then all of these online valuation generators would be spot on, but they're not, Zoopla, because for areas that I've worked in a lot of like riverside developments. So you've got river facing apartments and you've got non-river facing apartments, and the difference between the value can be quite big. But an online generator can't tell the difference between a 3-bedroom apartment sold in 2017, whether it was or not river facing, and just things like that, really.
Yeah, it's very similar in Cambridge, actually. I know it's all about the local knowledge the surveyor's got a lot of the time. And I don't do that much of Cambridge, but I used to when I was at the previous company I worked for. And I remember going once and I did just a terraced house, 2-bed terrace, £800,000. On the next street, they were £600,000. And I rang the local guy. He went, oh, that's because they lead to the park and you can park on that street. The other one, you can't get to the park and you can't park on that street. And they would have a difference of about £200,000 one street away. Yeah. So the time during COVID when most surveyors were furloughed and some were left doing desktop valuations, I was valuing things in Great Yarmouth. I was valuing things in London, all over, by looking at Rightmove and going, well, I find 3 comparables and it's not the same.
Yeah.
Because you need that local knowledge.
It's very rare. So I've been in the industry for 14 years now. Very rare that I've received a call from a surveyor asking the questions that you've just mentioned.
I was going to say that. Yeah. As in, come on, talk to me. How did we get to this price? It's normally after the event, after the buyers have got the report. Yeah. It's saying it's being downvalued. Yeah. And then you're literally, once the buyer's got that in their head, it's hard to remove it.
Yeah. I had a case not so long ago, about a year and a half ago. I had a case where, I'm going to guess these figures, but say the agent sold the flat for 380,000 and it was downvalued to 350, and they'd not taken a lot of things into consideration. It was an apartment in London. They'd not taken a lot of things into consideration. The buyer agreed to continue to buy it because that's quite scary. A downvaluation is quite scary for a buyer, but they did continue to buy it. they resubmitted a new mortgage application with a different lender, but they instructed the same surveyor to go back out. So we spoke to the surveyor, we got his contact details and spoke to the surveyor before he went back out, and he ended up increasing his valuation by 25,000. So it was only downvalued by 5,000. And you think if that surveyor just called me before he'd downvalued it, then actually the buyer would have got a better mortgage rate as well.
But this is coming back to, I think this all builds into this big property industry issue of timeframes. And you said helpful.
Yes.
What percentage of surveyors are helpful?
I'm going to say 100% so I don't get hate on the comments.
If we just press pause for a second and then we'll get the real answer.
Yeah.
What do you reckon it is?
I think the difference is whether they call the buyer. Whether they call the buyer and talk through the survey. I think that's what makes the difference, because there's most surveys I think can look quite concerning, because you have to pick everything up. You're paid to look at everything, and that's what you're going to do.
Yeah.
But a quick phone call to the buyer to say, I've had a look around. I'm not a surveyor, so this isn't going to be surveyor terminology, but I've had a look around for the price you're buying it for. It seems to be in the condition I'd expect it to be. Like nothing, no major red flags. And that's what I think buyers need to hear. But when they're just sent a report and there's no follow-up
and it's got
to
a red, orange or
everything's
green.
red. I've done somewhere everything's red. But my favourite phrase for people is, there's nothing that surprises me for the age of the property.
That's it.
So if there's subsidence, if the roof's caving in, yes, I'm slightly surprised. But a lot of it is general wear and tear. There's so much 60s and 70s housing stock and 50s. Roof tiles are designed to last for 60 years. So all these houses, I've just had a new roof. I didn't want to have a new roof, but I had to.
It's quite a big thing.
Yeah, it's not as expensive as you think, fortunately. But it's one of those things where if you're buying a house that's 60 years old, I think a lot of people don't realise you have to look after a house.
Yeah.
And I did a house recently for a young couple. They were lovely, and they were buying a 300-year-old semi. And I went out, I did this survey, and I said to them, there's nothing in it that surprises me. There's a little bit of damp, which I'd advise you just get checked out, but I think it's something to do with the door frame. There's an issue there. And the electrics, they've changed the consumer unit, and then there's some fibre cement roof tiles on the back, which might have asbestos in. And they rang me and said, we just want to spend all our money on going on holiday. We don't want to have to do any work to a house. And I said to them, I never say this. I've only said this about 3 times in 12 years of surveying. I was like, go and buy something else. You can't buy an old house and expect to not have to spend money on it. My house is 70 years old. It's cost me a fortune, but a lot of it's maintenance.
It is, yeah.
You mentioned damp. And then you just said asbestos. Mm-hmm. So that's another common problem in what a buyer sees and what it creates in terms of fear. So we've got down valuation, damp, asbestos. I mean, I know we're diving into the survey stuff at the minute, but we've got to because you're here.
But then, again, asbestos isn't a problem. It's a product that was used until 2000. So even 30-year-old houses might have it in. Just don't start sanding your Artex ceilings and breathing it in. That's what I say to people.
Yeah.
I had a lady pull out of buying a beautiful bungalow once because it had Artex ceilings. I said, well, the asbestos content's so minimal, unless you're damaging it. And yes, there's always a risk. There's a risk with everything you buy.
Can you go over it?
Yeah, skim over it. But then if you're drilling through, you're opening a can of worms sometimes with it. So it is one of those things. But it was used. Did you know asbestos was used to make toothbrushes?
No.
Yep. Asbestos was used in everything. Back in kind of when it was discovered as this is great, they made everything out of it.
Years ago, it was used for toothbrushes.
They made everything out of it. It's a good product.
That would be like a classic. Oh, you know what estate agents are like. He's just told me there was asbestos in my toothbrush.
Yeah. Imagine that at the pub on a Friday night.
Yeah.
Jesus
Can you believe
Christ.
what this estate agent said to me today?
But coming back to the time frame, like, what can an estate agent do to get the management of expectations better from a surveying perspective? We'll move on to some of the other moving parts. But if you were back in agency today, or you were consulting or whatever we're talking about, what should they be doing to manage the expectations at this point of the transaction?
Get it booked in early.
So earlier, because sometimes people leave it to the end, don't they?
I did a great one once. Again, I think it was one of yours. It was quite a few years ago. And it needed work. The woman rang me and she said, I'm buying this house. It needs a bit of work. I've been told I have to get a survey by my solicitor because I'm buying it cash. nothing's going to change my mind. I'm still going to buy it. And this must be
when
one of the
someone
worst
says that.
surveys I've ever written. It had everything you could possibly imagine. It had structural movement. The conservatory was falling off. The roof was coming in. Like, it started pushing outwards. You had woodworm, you had damp. And she pulled out. And she got it done the last week of the process. She'd been trying to buy it for 4 months. And I thought, get it done at the beginning. But I say to people, get your mortgage valuation done. Yeah. Because they're going to pick up if it's A, worth it, and B, if it's got any serious significant problems. Because a lot of the time they do send a surveyor around. It's not a desktop. So a surveyor does go around, they check in the loft for spray foam. We'll talk about that later.
Oh, God. Okay, that's the other one, isn't it?
They'll
Another
check
recent
for things.
one as
Yeah,
well.
so they'll check for things. A basic mortgage valuation, they will look in the loft. They will inspect the whole house, probably be there anywhere from between 20 minutes to an hour, depending on how big it is. So they are looking at it, but it's not a report. It's okay, everything seems fine. There's your mortgage. Then get your survey booked in. But we're also living in a world where surveyors are busy. There's not enough of us. I know the other local guy, he's booked up regularly 6 to 8 weeks in advance.
Yeah.
I'm booked up 3 to 4, maybe 5 to 6 sometimes. And people go, can I fit it in next week? I want to exchange. No. But again, I think there needs to be a roadmap of how to sell your house.
I think a roadmap's a really good idea. Yeah. I think it certainly helps people to navigate through the things that could potentially come up, because they're kind of red flags in the eyes of the buyer, and perhaps the seller, but a lot of them aren't red. They're maybe amber to green. It's just look, if this comes up, this is what we do. And I think a lot of estate agents should be considering that at the minute, because transaction timeframes are a problem. You know, years ago, and how long ago was it you were an estate agent?
I started in 2009.
14 years, did you say?
Yeah.
A similar-ish kind of time. And I know back in the 90s when I started, the late 90s, Jesus Christ, you'd sell a house and you'd move it from one drawer into another drawer. And then you'd get a phone call.
The 1 to 20...
1 to 31.
1 to 31.
1 to 31. That was the Val Chase book, right?
Yeah.
Okay. But you had a for sale drawer and a sold subject to contract or sales proceeding drawer. So you'd move it out, you put it in, close the drawer, and the only time you brought that file back out was when it exchanged.
Yeah.
And it would normally be about 2 or 3 months.
Yeah. And the solicitor that you recommend was usually on the same high street
Oh,
as you.
yeah. And they knew the area, they knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
And then we had factory conveyancing.
Yeah.
So before we go to spray foam, let's talk about factory conveyancing. And what is a factory conveyancer in your world, in your line of work?
Well, in my world, factory conveyancing is where there's one qualified conveyancer and then lots of people underneath them, in my opinion, protecting that person. So yeah, from my perspective, there's just, you never really get to that conveyancer. You never get to speak to that conveyancer. It's a very impersonable service.
But they all say these words,
volume.
won't they? We don't want to be speaking to estate agents. We want to be progressing cases.
Yeah, but that they have to see themselves as part of. They're a stakeholder in the transaction, aren't they? You know, they are part of.
Do you think they see that?
No, I don't think so.
No.
I don't think so. But and what I don't think is, I don't think conveyancers, not all conveyancers, I mean, there's fantastic ones out there, as we all know, but a lot of conveyancers, I think, they don't understand the importance of speed and how the longer a transaction goes on for, the higher the risk of fall through, and them sitting on a file could actually be the make or break.
But no, they don't understand though, do they? They don't understand.
They don't understand, and I don't think that they necessarily see the devastation that we see.
No.
Either. So that
because it is devastating, isn't it? The time, like, you know, you said 7 months. Is that right?
Yeah.
How stressful was that?
Oh, God. I mean, I've worked in the industry for however long it was then. It was like 13 years. And I remember Crufts is a really bad memory for me, because we were sat waiting to exchange contracts, just staring at Crufts. No one could get hold of the buyer's solicitor for 3 days. But the buyers were told on the day of exchange, oh, by the way, we've made a mistake. You've actually got to pay an extra $3,000 in stamp duty. They were getting married the next day. I was like, how have you not died from stress? Because I'm stressed. And our solicitor was brilliant. No, it wasn't actually. I think it was just one who had way too many cases, was way too busy, maybe had personal problems. I don't know, but we had one of the local surveyors, solicitors that you recommend, and she was absolutely brilliant. Yeah. Absolutely no issues with her.
I think this is one of the mistakes a lot of people make is they look at the quote, don't they, for conveyancing, buyers and sellers, and they go to the fee war, which is what you just talked about with surveying as well. And this isn't no different for estate agents, right? So they base their choice on price.
Yeah.
When actually the choice of price could mean 3 more months of transaction.
Yeah. I always say to people who ask me for advice, I gave up giving proper advice years ago because no one listens to me. I say, put your house on with a local agent. Don't go for the cheapest fee and the highest price they tell you, and suddenly it's on for £200,000 too much for purple bricks. Because, it was only 500 quid.
Yeah.
No, it's not going to sell. It's the same with solicitors and all of the bits and pieces. Is why, if you're spending £500,000 on something, why are you going to find the cheapest possible solicitor you can? Yeah. And it's just, I think that is a massive issue, isn't it? I imagine you've got your solicitors that you see their name and just go, oh no.
Yeah, funnily enough, it's changed a bit though.
Has it?
Yeah, there used to be cases, and I think there's like a few notorious law firms that we can all think of that we would see them and think, oh no, but actually those law firms do respond. And I think the biggest problem that we have is with solicitors that will not communicate with us. That is such a huge problem that we come up against, the solicitors that don't speak to us, because the factory conveyancers, as much as I hate to say it, they are improving. They are improving from where we were 8 years ago.
They've got the technology.
Probably. I do get responses off of them.
Yeah.
I do get responses off of them. The team get responses off of them. They're not thorough.
No.
They're not, they won't help to resolve issues. They're not very personable. They can miss things and get things wrong. And I see that quite often. But in terms of communication and getting things through within a timely manner, they're not the worst in that area anymore, I don't think.
Well, just coming back then to conveyancing, you've really got to be talking to someone that talks to you.
Yeah.
You really want to be focused on that. And from a surveyor, if you're an estate agent, work with a helpful surveyor, someone that actually wants to help you. In other words, you get to work together and they see themselves as a stakeholder in that journey. These are simple ways to optimize the time frame of the transaction. You said that you, at the start, I think it was 5 months. How many days is that, did you say?
150 days.
So 150 days of transaction average time frame, which means there's longer, which is pretty incredible. Then you said yours is around half.
Yeah.
How?
Being proactive.
So being proactive, because many estate agents that are watching this might do their own sales progression.
Yeah.
Is that a good idea? You're going to say it's not, but why?
Well, I think it does depend, actually. If they've got a small pipeline, they've got, five properties in their pipeline, then okay. I think you can manage that yourself. I understand that some agents sell that you'll deal with me from the beginning to the end. That's not sustainable as you grow.
No.
And I've seen a lot of agents in the situation where they've gotten too big, they can't stay on top of their pipeline, and then they instruct us and give us everything that's currently going through because it's gotten too much for them. So, I think there's only so long you can be proactive before, and surely as an agent, you want to be able to spend your time generating new business, not because if you spend all your time progressing sales, it's counterproductive. You're not going to grow the business. But yeah, I think from a productivity point of view, if you've got a small pipeline, you can stay on top of it. My big problem with people holding on with it for too long is that when issues arise, agents are out on appointments all of the time, right? Viewings, valuations, they're out and about. When an issue arises, if you don't answer the phone, who's the next person that a buyer's going to call? Yeah. They're going to call a friend or a family member and probably get some quite bad advice. And that could then be the make or break of your sale. If you've got a dedicated sales progressor, that's what a sales progressor does. They don't go out on appointments. They're by their desk. As long as they're not overloaded with cases, they'll answer that phone call and hopefully they'll give very good advice and be able to save
But what is it you do like, so you're proactive. What do you mean by proactive? What's your process? Because 7 months, 6 months, that's not actually horrific these days.
No. And we had sales progressors.
And we had sales progressors.
I think you had Natalia at the time,
Yeah,
and she
Natalia.
was excellent. And the agent we were buying through had a lady called Jenny as well that I know, and she was good.
Yeah.
But then those people were buying through Purple Bricks and no one could ever speak to them. No one knew what the rest of the chain was for months. And then it fell apart upwards and then downwards. Our buyers were in London, and they had a notorious London-based surveyor who actually told my sales progressor to get lost when she rang him once and said, I'm too busy to speak to you.
A few times.
So then she was having to call their solicitor, and it was all just very hectic. And I think there is in there, isn't there? There are agents who, if you get an agent in the chain, like one of these kind of that have too
Red
much
flag.
work on, or if you get one of the big ones that don't really have a sales progressor all the time for it, you've got issues within the chain, because Natalia just ended up chain jumping, and Jenny were going past people to go to the top to get the information.
But I think estate agents are well within their rights. And I'm going to go back to one of my first days as a branch manager. I was sat in Sandy, and there was a local solicitor that refused.
I've heard this story. It's a good story.
Yeah, literally refused to talk to an estate agent.
Yeah.
A lot of clients were like, I'm going to use this guy. I could say his name because I just remember it's just like that. And he ended up getting quite a lot of cases in our pipeline, and we couldn't get any updates. So I remember just emailing him saying, unless you talk to us, we're going to have to point this out to future clients, because we can't recommend anybody uses you if you don't communicate.
Yeah.
We communicate. They expect us to communicate. If you don't, we can't. So we'll just have to go to somewhere else. It's a bit of a with or without you kind of scenario. And he did. We agreed to talk once a week, and that was it. And actually, that was fine with me, because it meant I had an hour a week. It was probably only half an hour where he would talk. But red flags are important, because these are the things that hold up the transactions, and they are. And it's people. It could be a surveyor. Sorry, but not you. It could be an agent that's never in the office. It could be a conveyancer of some description who's not having those conversations. But these are the things that I think clients expect you to know.
Yeah. My partner actually said yesterday, and it really resonated. He said it's one of the only things you do where you are fully relying on other people's competence or incompetence. And if somebody somewhere is bad at their job, you're going to have a terrible time. And it is. I was like, that's a very good point, is that you kind of need everyone to be good. And when you've got that vendor who's tight on cash and says, I'm going to go with that really cheap solicitor there, you think, right, okay, well, this is going to affect other people. And we're going to have to do a bit more to chase it.
You could have a great agent. You can have a great mortgage broker. But the conveyancer's a piece of crap, and then they don't actually communicate or want to talk to anyone. You're in a lot of trouble, generally speaking.
It's true, but on the flip side as
this is what I want to hear. How do you
get it half? Well, I'll tell you how I get it half, but on the flip side, I have had chains before where the agents just don't do sales progression. So similarly to solicitors refusing to speak to agents, I've had chains where there's a link in the chain that just doesn't do sales progression, and I have offered my services and told them what my prices are because they need to do sales progression. Didn't go down very well. But at least it ruffled some feathers and got things moving. But yeah, in terms of halving the transactions, well, I think it's educating people. So there's lots of things that go into this. First and foremost, you could have a sales progressor, but if your sales progressor is dealing with 200 transactions, they're not going to be very proactive, are they? No. You have to make sure that you're realistic with the amount of transactions that your sales progressor is dealing with, because they need to be able to be proactive. So we, as a company, our sales progressors deal with 60 cases. That's where their pipeline sits, at 60, which I think is really important, because the sales progressors need to be able to have a relationship with the buyer and the seller, because when things go wrong, the sales progressor needs to be able to overcome those issues. If they've never spoken to the sales progressor on the phone before, they're not going to be able to overcome those issues, right? So I think a huge thing for me is the sales progressors not being overwhelmed with cases. And the same thing goes for conveyancers, really. If you've got a good conveyancer, then hopefully they're not.
What's a volume, realistic volume, if you was to benchmark it from your experience? I know this is subjective.
For conveyancers?
For both conveyancers and sales progressors.
Well, sales progressors 60.
Okay.
I think
that's
60.
Kind of the cap.
Well,
about 12 a day, isn't it? Kind of, if you're going to do it daily and set a goal of, This is how many, and
we do things a little bit differently to that because it's a very fluid process. So we haven't got a structured process like that. But I think between 60 and 80.
Yeah.
I think if you go above 80, then you're going into factory sales progression.
Yeah.
You know, so I think between 60 and 80, I like it under 60 because I think I set up the company to give a personal service, to get stuff done. The mission is to reduce transaction times. And if you're overloading people, you're not going to be able to do that. So yeah, it's keeping their pipelines low. We've also got a system that we use that I've half set up myself. So I've set up like how often each milestone should be chased. So that keeps the team on top of everything. They come in every day. They've got a task list. They know what they should be chasing. So that's really helpful as well. But going back to having a relationship with the buyers, the sellers, the solicitors, the mortgage brokers, that's important.
Yeah.
That's really, really important because if you put yourself in a seller's shoes and you've received your protocol documents, if you put yourself in a seller's shoes and you've never sold a house before, you'd sit them on your coffee table for a couple of days, wouldn't you? Until you've got, maybe a week, and you'd be pushing it to the next day, to the next day, to the next day. So speaking to people and having a relationship with them and educating them is really, really important. And if you don't educate them, then you come across like you're pressuring them.
Yeah.
So I think there's a real balance to doing things the right way and getting the right
time.
Yeah.
I suppose going back to the time scale thing and the roadmap of a transaction, you're the one best placed to say, right, you've sold your house, this is what's going to happen. And I imagine you do. And you say, this is the time. I go to people's houses sometimes, they're packing. And I say, how long ago did you sell? Oh, 2 weeks ago. Like, how long do you think it's going to take? They were like, oh, we don't know. I was like, okay, maybe speak to your agent. The average transaction now is about 150 days. 5 months, whatever it is. And they're like, what? I thought I'd be moving in 2 weeks. That's what I did last time, 40 years ago.
It's interesting though, isn't it? And but I so like there's a question as well over whether sellers should be going on the market, getting the paperwork done. So you talked about surveys. Maybe it's not legislationally ready for that, which I now understand. That's kind of like cross. I'll have to cross that off my list of how the hell can we get these exchanges?
Yeah, I definitely think it's something that's doable, and it's something that just needs a bit more knowledge as well. But I think we have for years now. You don't have to pay anything to put your house on the market, do you? As long as you've got an EPC that's maybe done last time you bought it, you don't have to pay anything.
Unless you're in the higher end when you do pay for marketing fees, generally no. Yeah. But it's interesting because I've just messaged you about giving me, because I've got a new build that needs to be sold, and they're tempted to sell it, 80% of the way there, and I can understand why, because it's the finish and all of those different things. But actually it's quite useful to say, well, look, if you pay X, won't quote the fee. If you pay X, you can have a price for as it stands and a price for when it's completed. And actually, that's quite good for me then to be able to use that figure in a conversation with the seller and the buyer at some point further down the line. But just spinning back round, because I'm conscious of the survey bit as well. Because level 2 or level 1. Yeah. Level 1, level 2, level 3, is it?
Yeah, level 1's on. I don't think there's many people that do a level 1.
So was that like the version of just a slight step up from the mortgage val?
Basically, yes.
Okay.
I don't know of any surveyors who's
it's more level 2 now.
So you're level 2 and you're level 3. So your home buyers and your building survey, people still know them as. And it's the level of detail. So most people go, I've been told I want this. I'll have a home buyers, please. And they send me the details and it's a massive rectory. I'm like, no, you need a level 3. And there is, it's the buyer's choice a lot of the time. We can't say you have to have this one.
Yeah.
We can advise. The difference is with the level 2 and the level 3 in layman's terms is the level 3 is more detailed and it will tell you a bit more about the construction of the property, what is wrong if there's something wrong, and how to fix it. And what now needs to be done next. Yeah. Whereas, you've probably read loads of surveys. I've read some awful surveys in my time. And one of my partner's work colleagues bought a house and he said, oh, we've found this. It's got subsidence and we've got this, that and the other. And he showed me the survey and I just thought, I've never seen anything like it. It was just so basic.
They
and
vary so much.
Yeah.
Like they vary even in like the length. I've seen survey reports that are like 40 pages and then survey reports that are almost 200 pages. And I don't really understand why.
But like that's probably part of the reason why the vendor doing it up front is a tricky one. Because what level survey would they then get to make it substantially worth doing?
Yeah, there almost needs to be a dedicated product for it.
Yes.
Because at the moment, a survey is a survey is aimed at the buyer.
Yes.
And it's always been the buyer that has done it in this country. I know in Scotland it's done slightly differently. You've got to get the home condition report, and that's done at a kind of first.
We were talking about hips earlier, weren't we?
Yeah, exactly. When people paid $299 for
Something
a hip?
Like that. Yeah. Didn't really take off though, did it?
I mean, the idea of vendor surveys is very good, and it's something we should be doing more of. But I think a lot of people they don't want to pay the money. They don't like the idea of it. It's quite a complicated area.
It's a complicated area, and I think this is part of the problem with moving home. It's made a lot more complicated than it probably really is.
And isn't there a really ridiculous figure that only something like a third of agreed sales go through? What is the actual number?
2/3.
It's two-thirds. It's 2/3. But you'll have in a town, even like St Neots, there's agents that will list or sell, complete on maybe only 30 or 40% of what they put to market.
Yeah.
So that's kind of similar to what you were saying.
Yes, I think the third comes from houses that go on the market, isn't it? Only a third of them actually go through to completion.
A third of transactions fall through. So UK average is 33%. Between 30 to 36.
So that's a lot, isn't it? So if we were all buying a house right now, all three of us individually, one of us is going to go wrong.
Which
and that's from sale agreed. That's not even from listing, though. That's from sale agreed.
But this is the point. I know we're working with you. And on the vendor ready, that's something that we want to kind of encourage vendors to do.
Yeah.
What that basically means is, for anyone watching, is that the paperwork's got to get done at some point.
Yes.
Why don't we just do it all at the start? Get the planning permission, get the gas safety, whatever it is. Get everything ready. So you've literally got all your documentation.
That's
it. Yeah.
And then when we sell the property for you, we are even more informed about the sale of your home.
Yeah.
That's a practical step that estate agents can make, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think as an industry, we aren't doing enough to tackle this problem.
And that's why I wanted you guys on, because I do think there is a lot that we can do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like, if we slow it down a second and not jump from listing to viewings to offers, etc., and we go actually in the middle there, we need to start educating our vendors. And my thought process is, and we've not officially rolled this out yet, so we haven't got any data, but my thought process is, if you educated a vendor and you had all of the documents prepared, so if you had the vendor instructed their solicitor, they completed their protocol forms, they've got their planning permission, their fences certificates, their lease, their service charge history, things like that, could you imagine a draft contract going out with all of that information? Because usually what happens is the draft contract goes out, it takes, 1 to 2 weeks for a draft contract to go out, and then a week or two for the buyer solicitor to review the draft contract, and then the buyer solicitor might wait for searches, or they might raise inquiries. If they're raising inquiries off of the draft contract, then they're going to ask planning permission, fences certificates, EICR. They ask for all of those things.
They've got it.
I think we could probably chop about 4 weeks off of a transaction, because you go back and forth, because once the buyer solicitor has then taken 2 weeks to review and ask that of the seller solicitor, they'll take a couple of days to ask for it for the seller. The seller will take a couple of days to dig it out. That whole process will take about 4 weeks. That back and forth takes about 4 weeks, because people don't do things as soon as it hits their desk. So I think we could chop about 4 weeks off transaction if we got vendors prepared with the right documentation up front and explain to them why it's important to act fast,
But you remember when you were an estate agent in the, I nearly said their name then, but they probably wouldn't mind. But you were there, you're at the desk, you go out, you get the house on the market. The next thing you want to do is just get it on the market.
Yeah.
You want to get it sold. But estate agents are kind of built to do it that way. As opposed to speed to market actually isn't speed of completion.
Yeah.
And this is the bit that I'm trying to convert in our business, where We have changed a lot over the years. I think we were certainly more of that ilk. It was market share, get them online, we do more deals off market now. We do more getting people further down the line before taking them off the market. There's different things that we've done, but I genuinely feel there's a lot more control that we've got at that point.
Yeah.
If we do it.
I think what you're saying as well shows a lot more commitment from the vendor, because the biggest problem in this country is that you can turn around on the day of exchange and go, nah, I don't want it anymore. Don't fancy that house, I'll go buy something else. I've changed my mind.
And vice versa.
Well, exactly.
You know?
The sellers.
Yeah.
I was talking to my partner's parents yesterday, and the house they live in now, that they've lived in for 30 years, is the third house they bought, because the first vendors went, actually, we don't want to sell it. The second vendors on the day of exchange asked for an extra $5,000. This was in the 90s, so that's a lot of money.
That's a huge
and they went,
amount of money.
no, thank you. And I've heard that being done before. I've heard buyers negotiating on the day of exchange.
There's also, you've heard of Gazelle, haven't you?
Yes.
And they do like the agreements.
Yes.
And that's an agreement between the seller and the buyer.
Yeah.
If one pulls out, then they've insured themselves for their costs.
Okay.
Which I think's a really good idea from a commitment standpoint. Because I do think the UK market, you think of how many hours estate agents put in to clients that say the following, and you must have heard this, well, we'll see how it goes. We'll test the market.
Yeah.
We'll put it up for sale. And if it doesn't sell, it doesn't sell. Or the classic, we're in no rush.
Yeah.
We're in no rush means you undersell eventually.
Yes.
It
does.
You undersell eventually. We're in no rush means you undersell eventually, and it takes an unnecessarily long amount of time.
Yeah. And a lot, and a long amount of viewings, vendor care, telling them the house is not. It's
we
just,
go out and we do all of this work, right? And you're running around, chasing viewings, going out there back and forth. I'd probably say the average sale at the moment as well, where buyers have got more choice now in the market, you could end up showing at least 12 or 14 buyers a house.
Yeah.
If you're not careful over different days. And if you're not careful over a period of 8 weeks.
Yeah.
And if you're not careful, you've got to add another 5 months on top.
Gosh, remember those repos that everyone would
my
call
God.
about? Five calls a day. I want to go view that house. Oh, no.
And then you get like the day before exchange and somebody makes a higher offer.
Yeah.
Well, we're closing in on this kind of like, do you know what? We just need to choose an exact process and say that this is what we do. This is how we do it.
Yeah.
It's fine if you don't want to work with us, because this is the difference in statistics, including open house.
I love an open house.
2 weeks of full marketing, 1 week of off marketing, only can view on that day, and we have qualified buyers looking at the house. They know they can get a mortgage, they know they've got the money, they know other people are coming, they know they're going to be competing, and you have got to put your best foot forward on the day. Imagine that with a pre-sold vendor contract already in place with the solicitor, surveyor ready to go round and do the necessaries, obviously not downvalue it.
No.
But because open house and event pricing is something that I talk a lot to my team about. And it's something that they're just got to learn to be more confident with, because you're effectively saying, Amy, I know your house, you've had a price of $750. We're going to be suggesting you go on at 700.
Yeah, I do this. I say this to people, and I'm not even an agent anymore.
And the purpose of it is to attract the most. Yeah. Well, the whole idea, you don't get the best price unless you've got the best buyer in the market at that point.
Yes.
So how do we find them? Right. This is the fun bit. So now I think estate agents, because they're so geared around corporate conditions and we've got to get the numbers. They're so focused on the front end and the whiteboard, not the back end and the invoice and the 5-star review. So it's a massive shift, isn't it? But if you were to go back into a estate agency today, you two,
it'd be so different.
What would you do that's different?
So when I worked for a big corporate, well, they were kind of corporate, semi-corporate after the first one. And we were kind of tasked on, right, you have to call 20 people today. We haven't got any new houses. So just call them and ask if they're still viewing. What's the point? Why? I call them, have you got a new house? No, just calling you to say, hello, you still looking? Yeah, okay. Has it changed what you're looking for? No, still on a 3-bed semi? Yeah. Okay, bye. All that stuff is just pointless, isn't it? And I've always, when I was an agent, I still pride myself now on selling somebody an absolute wreck when they said they wanted something that was done and no work. and selling a lady a flat who said she specifically did not want a flat, but she wanted a river view. And I went, come on, have a look at this.
Yeah,
and that's the thing. I put my house on with gigs when I sold 3 years ago because they were one of the biggest agents. I knew they had a good database of clients and buyers and that they would call out.
Yes.
And that's the thing, hot boxing, calling buyers and saying, hello, I've got this house, come and view it. Yeah. Because Rightmove is just, it's a magazine you flick through, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is. It's really a magazine. In fact, the majority, over 90% of the buyers or the leads we get asking to view a property do not buy the property they ask to view.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's a huge statistic especially when the seller says, as long as you're on Rightmove, it will sell.
Which is why
not really strictly
people
true.
think putting it on with purple bricks and all these agents that charge next to nothing. Yeah. Well, I just put it on Rightmove, don't I?
Well,
no.
You saw that on that documentary, didn't we?
Yes.
So you would go in and you would do it your way, which would be.
It's getting to know people, and I had buyers out there, and I would know when a house came on the market. I was like, Mr. Smith's buying that.
Yeah.
And he would.
Yeah.
Do you know what? Nikki, who used to work for me as well, she was brilliant at that, and she was the bloody administrator.
Yeah.
You'd get a listing, and she'd go, Matt, you know I'd buy that. And I'd go, I know. And then I'd say to the sales team, you know I'd buy that, don't you? And they'd go, oh, God, I don't know. Nikki would go, I know I'd buy it.
I've seen your team do this.
Yeah.
I've seen your team do this on video calls. I've seen it happen.
Well, you've got to know your buyers.
Yeah.
And knowing your buyers is understanding needs, not wants.
Yes.
Because I fell into this trap at Countrywide years ago, which was I was up against quite a sharp agent, and on my day off I'd need to lock my applicants away because if I didn't, they'll end up disappearing, and he'd sell one of them a house. But there was clients back then, they'll go, well, no, I only want a bungalow.
Yeah.
And it needs to be 100-foot garden, and then they'd buy a semi-detached house with a 50-foot garden, and I'd come back in on my day off, and I couldn't find that applicant because Gary's gone and sold it to somebody else. But buyers are liars, they used to say.
That's exactly what I was about to say. Buyers are liars. Yeah. Like the one who said she didn't want an absolute wreck and bought an absolute wreck.
That's it. Yeah. But so I think estate agents have a lot more control, and I'm saying estate agents because most of the people that are watching this, the audience are generally business owners of estate agents, property industry people, generally self-employed agents, etc. So you have a lot more control than you probably realise.
Yeah.
But is it just a lack of confidence of going against the norm with regards to, I'm not just going to go out there and compete on price and fees. I'm going to go out there and talk through the process that will get this client to exactly where they want to go in the shortest amount of time, for the best possible price. Yeah. That is what we're going to do. Yeah. And we're not going to move for anyone. It's 2%.
2% days, gone.
Yeah.
and you pay up front for, I don't know, the sales progression. I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah.
The marketing. But the point I'm making is I think you've got to choose your positioning, your model of getting a client to their outcome, and you've got to back it 100%.
Yeah. I agree.
You've always got that wide boy agent from a corporate who's going to come in and tell them 50 grand more and guarantee I'll get you that money.
Yeah.
And a lot of people go, oh, well, actually, they've said I'll get that. And you see it all the time. There's one in St Neots who does it, and they'll always value. You know exactly what I'm talking about. They'll always do it, and you see it come on. You're like, oh, that's a lot of money.
They changed prices, not just them specifically, but the local agent in our area reduced prices by an average. I think it was nearly 7% last year.
Wow.
If you think about that, let's say a 500 grand house. Let's get the calculator out. What's 7%? 35?
Yeah.
35 grand? Something like that. I don't even know.
They'd have put that on at offers over 450. Yeah.
Jesus
35.
Christ.
They'd have put that on at offers over 450 instead.
They would have got 475.
Exactly.
Instead of reducing it down, and then you're chasing the market.
Yeah.
And actually, the reason why 2021 was so good for let's call it home sellers getting a great price is they had competing interest. That's what open house does. And actually now you can list a house and the phone won't ring and inquiry won't come in.
Yeah.
And that is one of the biggest challenges for agents right now is that they know they're going to be out there competing with someone who's just 100% guessing how much do I need to say to get this on the market or what does the price need to be? And they are adding themselves another 3+ plus months onto just the sale of the house
Yeah.
straight away. And then the footprint as well.
It goes stale and people think, why has that been on the market?
Yeah.
My Dave's parents, their neighbours are for sale, and it came on at 895 a year ago, 18 months ago. They reduced it to 885. That doesn't even count on Rightmove. Then they changed agent. Now they've changed agent again, and they haven't changed the price. And I said, it's too much money.
And what do they say, though? What do they say?
Well,
They'll say it's quiet.
Yeah.
It's the market. I love that one. That's a classic.
Exactly.
Or it's August.
Yeah.
It's August.
I was like, they need to drop that to
There's no
800
one out
grand.
there.
It's too much money, clearly. Because even if you were
Exactly.
thinking, 850, I'll go it, you'd still go and look at it, wouldn't you? At
Yeah,
885?
absolutely.
But there aren't many going on at the above market price. I can't think of many examples in the last year, 18 months, where someone surprised the market in terms of price. So it's a pointless exercise. You're going to actually lose all of the impetus and the impact that you can have on the sale of your home and getting and finding that best buyer.
And how much money do they spend on photos, floor plans, listing properties that they never end up selling?
Well, you've got all other factors now. It costs more to run a business. It costs more to hire people. It costs more insurance.
Yeah.
You've got more contributions to taxes.
You've
got all of the other stuff plus everything else.
Yeah.
And then you're throwing it at something that you don't genuinely think is going to sell.
Yeah.
I think you've always got the vendor expectations as well. You guys have just sold one, and I'll tell you which one afterwards. It's in St. Neots. And I went out to do a remortgage 18 months ago. His estimate was 750. I valued it at 550. I went, why do you think it's worth this much money? It was a semi. And
I know exactly which one.
a local agent, put it on. Yeah, local agent put it on at I think 700, then 650, then 600.
Yeah.
Then they switched to you, and you put it on at 550, and you've sold it.
Yeah.
And you think, well, if you'd have put it on that in the fact, but he was adamant that was what it was worth, and he didn't want to put it on any less.
It's funny because when I hear this, and obviously I know that this happens, but when I hear this, it just brings me back to what I was saying about solicitors don't see the devastation. Do these agents not see this devastation that they cause by overvaluing? Because there are people that need to desperately move for financial reasons, for personal reasons. They need to desperately move. But overvaluing are doing such a injustice.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
It frustrates
Such
me.
a
There
good
was
point.
one in St. Neots a couple of years ago, and it was at that peak of 2022 when the prices started going down again.
Yeah.
And an agent, I was speaking to two of the local ones, they'd gone out and valued it at, say, 600. Another agent had gone out and valued it at 700, and they'd put it on at that. And it kept reducing and reducing and reducing to catch up with the market, and eventually sold for 5 something. And you think, they could have got 600 grand if they put it on. And that's really upsetting. Yeah.
No, I think this is the thing, and I think behaviours show up in all sorts of forms. And I think as sitting here today in the industry that we're in, I think what we're generally saying is you can actually reduce the speed. Sorry, increase the speed.
Yes.
Of the transaction.
Yeah.
If you start with the vendor instructing from the off, let's just kick off there. We can't really go down the survey route, which would be nice because I actually think.
Yeah.
That would make so much sense.
You can if you sit down and work it out.
Yeah.
I think if we could sit down and kind of go, right, this is what we're going to do, vendor surveys are a really good idea.
Yeah.
Because like you say, they learn things up front, and a lot of these defects are, the pointing needs redoing on your roof and little bits and pieces. So they could go, okay, well, we'll do that. We'll use a reputable contractor. We'll get the receipts for it.
Yeah.
And then we'll show it that way.
Yeah.
And I think that would really work then if you did it that way.
Well armed.
And it shows commitment from the vendor as well, because they've spent £500, £600, £700 on a survey to get their house moving.
And I think commitment's one of the fears people have on either side, isn't it? Like you said about Dave's parents, is that at any point someone can pull out.
Yeah.
But if they're going down the route of, I'm going to get all of this done, I'm going to make my house marketable, and I'm also going to make sure that I price it in a way that's going to attract the most amount of demand, I think that's a really good starting point.
Yeah.
I do think surveying at the beginning of the transaction is key, because the later you leave it, the more nervous you could feel, because at the end of the day, you might have someone that says all of the right things, but actually when it comes to it, it's quite the opposite.
Yeah.
So that management of expectations.
Just to add on top of that, the majority of the solicitors, when they send their file off for review, for sign off for exchange, will say, they haven't had a survey, tell them to get a survey. So you just have to have that conversation with buyers early on about, are you getting a survey or not? I think it's really important because, we discussed earlier that the majority of buyers don't get a survey, but the majority of my pipeline of buyers do get surveys.
Which is bizarre, because like, if you're going out to buy a car, you wouldn't just go, okay, I'll have it, please. You'd ask to see the service history. It's so low. And I think there's a lot of distrust in the survey sector because everything is so padded out and we're covering ourselves. And I see it so often online. I get pop-ups on Facebook of all these kind of people who've bought a house and they're going, oh, it's got this wrong with it. And they say, did it not come up in the survey? They're not worth the paper they're written on.
Yeah. Oh, that must bloody infuriate.
Yeah, and it's difficult to do that fine line of, oh, well, there is damp. And I'm not just going to put, oh, well, there's a bit of damp, but it's nothing. You can't write that down.
No.
You've got to say, okay, well, there is damp because it could be worse. You could have dry rot. You could have woodworm.
Yeah.
So there's like, it feels like there's 5 or 6 things agents should take away from this episode, because it's obviously not a debate. We're not fighting with each other. We're all in this together, which is one of the points, actually. Having your conveyancer that communicates.
Yes.
Having a mortgage broker that communicates.
Yeah.
Having a surveyor that communicates. A sales progressor that communicates. Those people are part of the team that the seller and the buyer should be working with.
Yeah, it's so important.
That proactivity, because I'd imagine you were proactive back in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would be shocked if you weren't.
And I always remember our old surveyors that would come in, and Mark, and the old chap would come in. I can't remember his name. He was brilliant.
David Lauer as well?
He was my mentor, when I started.
I remember David, he'd come in, he'd have a good old moan.
Yeah.
He was a really nice bloke. Cup of tea, they'd have a cup of tea.
But a lot of surveyors don't want to work with the agent. Well, a lot of surveyors, we're not allowed to work with the agent, really. Our client is the buyer. We can be different. I can't come in and go, oh, by the way, that house is really damp, there's a hole in the roof. There are surveyors out there I've seen, there's a company who offer almost a certificate after the survey's done that is shared with the vendor to say, you've had this survey done, this is what's wrong with your house. Here's what's wrong, here's the certificate. And they show that, and I can't remember the exact way they do it, but it's this product they've designed, and I think it's a great idea because
we need to look at that.
I go in someone's house, I'm in there for a few hours, poking things, prodding things, and I go, bye. Yeah. What's wrong with my house? Can't tell you. You're not my client. It's a really odd thing to be doing.
It must be an awkward situation, actually, sometimes. Yeah,
definitely. I've always found it really weird.
I've never thought about that. 30 years in the industry. So you're coming round to basically, and I think sellers are suspicious.
Yeah, I'm coming around to find things wrong with your house. Yeah, and I'm not going to tell you any of it unless there's a safety hazard, and I will. Yeah. So silly things like, oh, you've got a loose live wire over there, but we're not. That's not how it works. But it is a very bizarre thing, which is why actually the vendor survey makes more sense.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I've done kind of when someone's buying the house as the tenant.
Yeah.
I did one the other day. They're a right to buy tenant, and they started off, right, let me show you all the damp.
Yeah.
Let me show you all the mould. There's a hole in the roof up there. All these things they were pointing out.
Yeah.
Because if they were the vendor, they wouldn't be doing that.
No.
But then I can talk to them about the things I find. Like if the tenant lives there, I say, look, come and have a look. The bath seals are leaking. This is going to be in my report. You're going to read this.
Yeah.
It's so much easier than being in a house for someone I'm not working for. It's really odd.
Totally. And if you were to go, were you going to say something then?
I was going to say that I was looking at the statistics before I came here as to what percentage of surveys ended up in price renegotiation, remedial works, or fall through. And I couldn't find an exact figure. There was a few different statistics ranging between 60 to 80% of surveys end up. So that for a vendor is
it's a big
quite
deal.
Yeah, it is.
It's a lot more than the fee, isn't it?
Well, it is.
As an estate agent, generally speaking.
It's huge. So I think this is why I thought that vendor surveys were a good idea, because I think it's about protecting the price, because when a survey's done, it's after you've agreed a price. The vendor has already re-agreed their onward purchase, or if they're not buying onwards, they've spent, mentally spent their money elsewhere and budgeted and things like that. So to then be knocked by, let's say, 20,000, they've got to find that somewhere.
Yeah, it's really difficult, isn't it?
Yeah, so to get a survey up front, you're protecting yourself from that situation.
Yes.
So it seems to me the investment in a survey is a lot less than getting knocked by 20,000 by a buyer survey.
Because a lot of buyers will then go, oh, well, I didn't realise this, and actually it's only £1,000 worth of work, and they want 10 grand off.
Exactly.
And I'm sure you've had it before where buyers will get a survey and then use that to renegotiate. Yeah. And I've had people ring me and say, what bits of this survey can I use to knock the price down?
Yeah.
And I had a chap ring me and say those exact words. I went, there's none of it.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with it.
I found a website a few days ago of a surveying firm in London that it's like a sales pitch to buyers. Use us and we'll help you renegotiate the price 5 to 10%. Yeah. Yeah, it's awful. I was reading it and I was like, I hope that this...
See, that's such the wrong approach, isn't it?
Yeah.
And opposite to what we're talking about with the certificate and giving that reassurance to the clients entering into the marketplace.
It almost needs to become something that the buyers and the vendors do together. Yeah. And I don't know how that would be done, but I know this company who do the certificate of, I can't remember what they call it, but it is basically being able to disclose what I found to the vendor, because I've had it before where the agents have rung me and said the buyers have pulled out, what was wrong? And I said, well, you'll have to speak to the buyer. They said they won't tell us anything. They won't give any reasons. So then you don't then know when you put that house back on.
I always find that though, that sort of buyer really annoys me.
Yeah.
Because I think there's what you've pulled out. We're not trying to persuade you to buy it.
Yeah,
it's true.
But if you were selling your house and your buyer had a survey and they then pulled out and then they said they're not willing to tell you what was wrong with your house, how would you feel?
Yeah,
it's difficult, isn't it? I had one where the agent rang me and said the woman's pulled out. I went, the only negative thing on the survey, this house was immaculate. There was a wasp's nest, an old wasp's nest in the loft.
It's not even alive.
And she pulled out and she said, loads of things come up on the survey. And I was like, obviously I can't tell you what's in the survey, but the only negative thing I found was a wasp's nest.
That's because she just wanted to pull out.
Exactly.
I was going to say that. But, question for you. If you did a buyer's survey and something came up, the buyer withdrew, if the vendor approached you and said they'd like to pay you for your advice, could you then share your findings with them?
I'd have to do a whole new survey with terms and conditions. I think a lot of vendors try and buy the survey off of the buyer, but then they've got no liability because my survey was for that client.
Okay.
So they then can't come back. But I have done it before where the vendors then bought the survey because these people have spent £700 and found out that there's a few things wrong. Which is almost why the vendor surveys would be a good idea, because then people can repair the issues. Yeah. And if there's big issues like you've got damp, they get the further investigations done. They get the damp specialist out and they do a whole damp survey. So it would be a great idea to do the vendor surveys purely for the vendor's knowledge more than to share with the buyers. Yeah. So they know what's wrong or what's not wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
Makes sense, doesn't it?
And my thought process around this. So when you do, this is a question for you. When you do level 3 surveys, do you always have a costing schedule with a level 3 survey?
It doesn't have to be included.
It doesn't have to be.
I personally don't do costings because they can just vary so much.
Yeah.
And when we had our new roof,
it's like a can of worms, isn't it?
Yeah, we got quoted between £7,000 and £18,000 for our new roof.
Yeah.
Well, people usually go with the middle, don't they? But it's optional in a level 3 survey.
Yeah. So that was my thought process. If a vendor's getting a survey and there are things that need attention,
it would be good to actually have them included.
Buyers would need a number, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Like how much is
I
this
like
gonna
to
cost
advise
me?
people based on my own experience, and I'll always say that. So when I speak to a buyer after the survey, I say, look, the roof's going to need replacing. I recently had mine done. It cost X. Yeah. You would maybe be expecting roughly this, but don't quote me on that.
Yeah.
When it's written down, you've got a lot more comeback, haven't you?
Yeah,
it didn't cost £10,000, it cost 20.
Yeah,
It cost 12.
True. Yeah. True.
So just coming back to the final points, really, which are helping agents understand where they can speed up the process. Touched on a few ideas which we as agents can control.
Yeah.
Are there any other ones that we've missed? I mean, I think other than being proactive and personally, one of the things I used to do, and you probably do with your ladies, your clients you getting them to chase stuff.
Yeah.
And to be proactive is obviously a given, but I think sometimes people aren't asked of that. Yes. If that makes sense.
Yeah, we certainly do that. We certainly get people involved. If we're struggling, sometimes, I don't know, for example, if a mortgage broker won't respond to us because we're not their client, then we get the buyer involved and things like that. I think it's using all of your resources. But I think the main thing is communication between everybody. Communication will change transactions.
What about having a time frame finally at the start of it? Like, we've just agreed the sale. Your buyers all got there. Obviously, we've got to go through AML, checks,
Yeah.
all of that kind of
Yeah.
malarkey. That's great, isn't it? I years ago used to be like, well, we're going to exchange contracts by this time, and it would go on the memo of sale. It was like, there's a stake in the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What a good idea. I think that sounds like it's disappeared.
Yeah. There are still, I would say probably about 20% of the memos we get through still have timeframes on them.
Like new builds.
No,
No. Okay.
estate agent memos.
Should we do more of it?
But I think some.
Or
You got.
can it
I
be-
think
can it be
a
a-
realistic. I think a realistic timescale, because usually the timescale is like 6 to 8 weeks. And okay, if you've got a cash buyer buying a chain-free property, no problem. 6 weeks, no problem. But if you've got a buyer that's selling a property, they need a mortgage. Your seller's buying onwards. You're not going to get it through within 6 to 8
No.
6 to 8 weeks. So I think being realistic, because the problem with setting those timescales on a memo is once you go
Expectations.
past that timescale,
Stress.
you can't set another one because you've missed the previous one, so it
Yeah.
means nothing.
Fair enough.
Do you know what I mean? So I think
Take that
realistic.
one off the list.
Well, no, I do think realistic timescales is helpful.
Yeah.
But I think it has to be realistic for each situation. I don't think you can put a blanket. We're going to put 8 to 10 weeks
No.
on every memo. I think it needs to be specific to the situation of that property
Yeah.
and agreed between all parties, so they know what they're agreeing to, not just put on a memo.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of it is just put on the memo without communication
Yeah.
between
You've
buyer
also
and
got
seller.
those buyers at the top of the chain who are still looking.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
those scenarios
Can't
are all quite
control
different,
that.
aren't they?
But I do think it's a good idea. It just needs to
Yeah.
be done correctly.
I'm
I
full of
think.
good ideas. It's
Yeah.
just got to implement it. But what's the one question I haven't asked you today that you thought or would like me to ask?
I don't know. I think we've gone over.
We covered enough
I
ground.
think we've gone over.
Well, you've travelled
lot.
from Portugal to get here.
Needs to another hour.
Portugal. There's me and you half an hour down the road.
I know. I travelled from Portugal, and then it was a 3-hour drive up here.
Wow.
That's commitment.
Yeah,
it is.
it's commitment. Dedication to the cause. No, I don't
Good,
think there's.
that's good.
I don't think
Doesn't
there's
have to be.
anything that we've
What about you,
missed.
I
Trouble?
thought you'd tell me off for downvaluing your houses.
No.
I don't downvalue too much.
You
I'm good.
don't. I think you're really
No.
good. I think the helpful piece is like, if you put a surveyor in, if you said surveyor to an estate agent, please describe them, they wouldn't say helpful. And I think if you are helpful, that's because
Yeah.
you've built a relationship with the agent. And I think that's mutually beneficial.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was at Countrywide, they'd say, "Oh, right, can you do a little pitch on how you upsell so many surveys?" I was like, "I don't.
No.
I have agents that recommend to me because I'm nice. That is
Yeah.
literally it. I'm nice. I'm helpful."
And I think if your content on LinkedIn, both of you, is really good. And I think, follow these ladies, Amy Williams, and obviously, I'm going to say it right this time, Natasha, oh God, Candeias? No.
Candeias.
Shit. Anyway, that's a wrap for today's show. So thank you so much for joining me, ladies. It's been an absolute pleasure. Just diving into an area of the estate agency industry, which is probably left a little bit on the shelf. And I think it needs to be off the shelf and in our minds. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. Follow, subscribe, like, watch more episodes than Amy. And I'll see you on the other side. Take care.